Well, hello everybody and welcome to our retro movie review for Shane Meadows' Dead Man's Shoes. Stephen, this is one of our, I presume one of yours as well. I know it's certainly one of mine, our favourite movies of the last 20 years, I want to say.
So, yeah.
Just fantastic, independent British movie with a relatively unknown cast at the time. I'd like to say likes of Toby Kebbell and Paddy Considine are now bigger, well-known names. But just an amazing film. You introduced this film to me. I wasn't aware it even existed until you sent the DVD round. It was DVDs back then.
Yeah, it was.
And I was transfixed by it, and I've watched it a good 24 times, I want to say, since then. It's about a long time since I've seen it, so we're doing this off the top of our heads. But
yeah,
look, I says general spiel about the movie. I've got that out of the way. That's the first part in the guideline of this review. Shane Meadows. I don't think the guy's ever hit this level again with his movies. I think it's Welcome to England or something.
Yeah, This Is England.
Oh, This Is England, yeah. I've never seen any of those movies, so I'm maybe doing him a disservice.
Yeah.
But for me, he's never eclipsed Dead Man's Shoes. I think this is his best work. But what's your thoughts?
It's a funny one, John, and it's like most films that are filmed and made here in the UK that they always gather a cult following. You know, as good as they may be, sometimes internationally they don't do as well. I couldn't actually tell you how this performed, but I do remember at the time when it came out, 2004, I want to say, roughly around about then. I saw the film, I think it was maybe 2005, 2006, by fellow movie burner Kevin, who gave me the infamous DVD and said, you need to watch this. So I kind of went into it blindly, didn't really know what to expect. Only knew Shane Meadows through name at that point, I've got to be honest. Didn't really know much of his work or anything like that. Paddy Considine.
Apples and apples.
Yeah. Tomatoes and tomatoes.
Yes,
I did not know at this point this was pre-Hot Fuzz, because that was probably the first thing that I really noticed him in, with his connection with your man, what's his name?
Oh, Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, and
yes.
Obviously
Simon Pegg,
the great Simon Pegg. So this really stood out to me. I know we're going to get into performances and stuff like that, but I just touch on it briefly just before we move on, John.
Yes.
This film is Paddy Considine's greatest work.
I agree. Yes,
and this is a fantastic actor.
And he's done some amount of amazing movies in the ensuing years, Stephen. Look, we'll get right into Paddy Considine's Richard character, the introduction to this movie. Just magnificent. It really sets the tone for the entire movie in terms of technical aspects, in terms of story, everything. So well shot. It's Richard walking with his younger brother. I want to say he's with his younger brother, as I did say. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen it. Certainly he's walking, though, through a field.
Yeah.
To the backdrop of Vessel in the Vein. I think you know who sang it. And it is just a fantastic scene.
It was the band Smog, but it was what was his name? Bill Callahan, that sang the song, who's an artist in his own right. But it's just one of those standout tracks, John. What I liked at this
little arpeggio sort of guitar part.
It was just nice, calm sound to the film. It kind of. It kind of sets up the slow burn nature of the film. It's just, and what I like is, played in the background this old video footage of the two brothers growing up.
Yeah.
So you're getting that kind of connection right away from Shane Meadows, that these two guys were very close as brothers. They weren't distant in any way, regardless of Richard obviously being an army guy. Obviously away from home quite a bit. There was obviously this backstory, and it's a clever way of doing it, showing the old sort of cine reels and stuff like that, these two brothers being very close, Richard and Anthony, so it was a great setup.
Yeah, Stephen, look, that is so key for this movie, because it is essentially about these two brothers, the intertwining fates and where it leads Richard later on in the movie, which we will get into. This is a spoiler review. I think the original one that I did back in the audio days was non-spoiler.
Yeah.
This one will be a spoiler. But you're right, the cine reels and just showing us the close relationship of these two guys growing up with kids forming into teenagers and obviously adults thereafter. Because that's what happens with humans, they get older. Just highlighting the closeness of the relationship, showing you this guy, he's on a journey from the get-go, a vengeance trail if you like. He's walking along this country road, fields, Looks amazing. He's got an M65 jacket on. So simplistic, his outfit, but just everything about this guy screams utility. Everything has a purpose. He's almost like a Bruce Lee in terms of his ideology with muscles. This guy is this way with keeping everything simplistic. Everything's just basic. And just an amazing start to the movie, really. And it only gets better because we then go into the social club scene where one of these fuggish gang members, Herbie, although he's not very fuggish in truth, he's kicking around with a leather jacket and a beanie hat and long hair. He's a bit of a fool, to be honest.
He's a dealer or something like that, isn't
he's peddling drugs, But this social scene, obviously, it gives us one of the standout lines in the movie. I don't think we can say it because it's not, we make it done with YouTube and whatnot.
See you next Tuesday.
Yes, see you next Tuesday. But it's just an amazing sequence. He's sitting in the middle or in the corner of this social club, watching him peddling drugs. He's staring him out. Herbie takes exception to it and asks him who the hell he's looking at, and he replies quite subtly with you, C-U-N-T. So, just what did you make of that sequence? Again, it establishes early on this guy knows that this Herbie chap and the rest of his friends have done some serious wrong to him, and he's on a vengeance trail to sort them out.
I think Richard's very unassuming up to that line, John. You don't really know exactly where he's coming from. Almost like the Joker in The Dark Knight with the look at me scene,
exactly.
The interrogation scene. It just kind of shocks you, the delivery. And Paddy Considine is excellent at that. Just in that calm nature of his, and then just snaps very quickly and delivers that line, and you kind of,
he did.
You do react the same as Herbie. You do. I didn't expect that. He certainly didn't expect it because it put him on the back foot. What came after that was very strange though, and I think that was just to sort of unease Herbie. Was the apology in the alleyway outside the club, and he's shaking his hand. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me and all that, and it's just all part of the build up. It's really just to unsettle this character so he doesn't know what to expect from Richard.
But even that apology takes Herbie off guard as well. It catches him because he comes out of nowhere, and again that's letting him know psychologically, I can get up behind you without you even knowing I'm here. You are my bitch, and I've got you in my palm of my hand, which she actually says later on in the movie in another fantastic sequence. Stephen, the scene after that I think is one of my favourites in the movie. There's a few. It's not my all-time favourite, but it's certainly one of my favourites. The flat sequence, I says, with Herbie, Saws and Tough, three absolute strange bedfellows who are having a sort of drinking and drug session with Sonny's drugs. So they're getting torn into a concoction of different things. Again, it sets up these guys wonderfully. I think this is something that's really handled well in this movie as a whole. The handling of the characters, be it the villainous sort of thugs, even though they are absolute gonks in this movie, you're supposed to hate them. He does flesh them out very well, Shane Meadows. And this is a perfect example of it in this sequence. You have these three guys, they're bantering back and forth, it's setting them up. And then Richard comes along, just as Herbie's about to leave, with a gas mask and a full-on boiler suit on.
Yeah.
Stuns him again. There's just complete disarray and carnage. He seems to sneak in somehow while they're trying to ascertain what's going on. I think he thinks it's an elephant man or something. Or an elephant.
Well, I think he's at the doorway. He can't get in, so he's kind of hitting the door, but he's startled him, he's again.
And he's on drugs. So he has seen an elephant.
And I think it's just sort of planting the seeds amongst this group to, unease them, and what the result of that is, which I think was intentional, is that they start to argue amongst themselves whether or not it was real or not. I think at one point, one of them described Richard as dressed up like an elephant or something like that, just because of the shape of the gas mask, but obviously this sets up a perfect introduction for Sonny, the main villain in the film, he's the leader of these thugs, and the explanation they've got to give him as well. I think at one point one of them says, does he say, I can't remember.
I think it's Tough or Saws says to Herbie, don't mention the elephant. Yeah. And then of course as soon as Sonny comes in, he mentions something about an elephant and his drugs disappearing. So you have to establish that as well. Richard does go off with quite a concoction of drugs, and I think later on, just after the introduction of Sonny and the rest of this thuggish gang, he has a quiet moment with obviously Anthony, and he says, I'm going to send him to space with these drugs, which he does later on in the movie. But Stephen, that's just again one of my favourite scenes in the whole movie, just the boiler suit. Again, it shows you the cunningness of Richard. He's able to get by, and he plays him like a fiddle. And then obviously he goes on and does some other things throughout the night as well with some of the other gang members. Certainly Sonny spray paints his face like a clown. And they all come together just beautifully. It's like almost like a circus.
Yeah.
And even though Saw's Tough and Herbie, I want to say their names are almost, they are played like idiots when we first see them. They almost look like the more serious ones when the rest of these guys get together. I think there's one of the older guys has Knob spray painted NOB on the back of his denim jacket. As I did say, Sonny, the main ringleader of this gang, has a sort of clown face painted on him, and he has an interaction with Herbie after he says to him that he'd seen an elephant and his drugs had disappeared. He takes him into the kitchen, I think it is, and tells him, see, we've got an issue here. You're talking about my drugs disappearing and now you're mentioning elephants. So it's just an amazing sequence as a whole. I really enjoyed it again.
And that's what I'm saying, Richard set it up nicely. You know, it's to sort of unsettle the gang.
So the seeds of discontent.
And obviously there's mistrust then, at that point, because I don't think Sonny can trust, his panda thugs as he once did.
Yes.
At this point as well, John, it's very interesting, from an audience point of view. You're sitting there thinking, what is Richard's problem? What is it these guys have done to him? Because that's what you're thinking is, you're thinking they've wronged him in some way, something's not right here, why is he doing this to these people? We know they're scumbags, and they probably deserve what they get at this point, but Richard seems like a good guy. Why is he doing this,
Stephen, that's something that continues throughout this movie. There is real sort of you're on a precipice with morality and some of the things that are happening. We know that he's been wronged and ultimately he is vindicated, but the manner in which he deals with the Sonny and the rest of these gang members it's brutal, and you're questioning whether he's a sort of anti-hero or an out-and-out hero. You're right, we don't really know why he's going after them, but I think even in this sequence, when they mention the name, I think Herbie mentions the name Richard. He thinks he's seen him and he may be the guy that's responsible for what's happened.
Yeah.
Immediately we start seeing Meadows showing his flashbacks with what happened with Anthony, the interactions with that young brother and this gang.
Before that though, John, the mention of Richard, I think it might have been Herbie that said, I saw him down the club. The silence in the room at that point, and they're all looking at each other, knowing
that's when
that's Anthony's brother, and we know what he's capable of. We know that he's a soldier, we know that he's got special skills, shit.
Yeah, and they are the shit. And that's something that is perfectly illustrated in the next part of the movie when they're all in a Citroen 2CV, a very small, almost Beetle-esque, smaller than a Beetle, vintage car. I don't know how, I want to say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in this car.
Yeah, there's 4 in the back.
I don't know how they get it in, and just again, we've not touched upon, we briefly spoke about the soundtrack in the opening shot of the movie, but again, I can't recall the exact song, but it's a sort of poppy song and it just fits perfectly with this sequence.
Yeah.
But what transpires next, again, this is my out-and-out favourite moment in the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's just the interactions between Sonny. He tries to confront Richard, who's standing out in the middle of a street. He comes out of this car, he's like a class clown, really, coming out of a packed car. He goes over and tries to act all intimidating, and I think he says, did you... It dances, I can't recall the exact words.
I think what he says, do you like coming into men's houses at night and dressing them up like women or something, like putting lipstick on them or something like that.
And something about the guys have got this stupid idea that you were going around. Yeah, it was me. Immediately admits to it. He has no fear. He's admitting right away, this was me. And then he says, obviously, I watched over you as you slept. I was that close to slicing your throat. You're there, you're effing there.
Yeah,
Get in the car and gather the guns. And again, that's just a perfect illustration of where this guy is mentally. He's
I think
on the vengeance.
psychologically, Sonny's trying to get the sort of upper hand in him, in this scene, and thinking, I know you know, and you know that I know that you know, kind of thing. Is going on with them. And you're right, John. When Richard just says, "Yeah, it was me," let's just cut to the chase. Let's stop the crap. Just stop the hard man act. I'm telling you, it was me. What are you going to do about it?
And again, it puts him on the back pedal or the back foot. And this is something that Richard does time and time again. He's got no fear. He's got nothing to lose.
Anthony's hanging about in the background at this point. He's keeping his distance. As if he fears these people as well. Which, again, Shane Meadows sets up this shot so nicely. And so subtly.
He does, Stephen. Look, it's just a beautiful. Again, we'll speak about cinematography later on. But again, that's just an amazing utilisation of the whole scene, the way he's positioning the character of Sonny, Richard, and then obviously Anthony in the background. It's almost like what Ryan Johnson spoke about with Knives Out. Being intelligent with the way you position characters, it adds depth to the scene, and you can get more characters in without it losing effect.
That's
with
right,
them all being on the screen at the same sort of perspective or standing. You've got Anthony off in the distance, and I thought that was just a beautifully constructed sequence as a whole. Musically, the way it furthered the story, and it just showed these gang of goons, if you like, as Richard calls them, that they are very much on the back foot. He doesn't care, he's nothing to lose, this guy. He's on an absolute vengeance trail, and he's told them to gather their guns or whatever they've got and come at me first or something. Again, I've not seen it in a number of years. I do apologise for butchering the dialogue, but it's sets up where this movie goes into the final half.
I think what Sonny asks him, are you staying up at the farm or something like that? It says, how you come to get me? And he's like, why are you scared? And he's like, he's kind of trying to freak him out, but he just handled the scene so well, Paddy Considine, but the Richard character as well. He knew what to expect. He knew exactly when these guys were going to try and confront him. He wasn't hiding in the shadows at any point. He confronted Herbie very early on in the social club to sort of set the scene, and set the tone of and set what his intentions were. He knew that Herbie was going to get back to the rest of them and saying Richard's back in town. They know who Richard is. He's Anthony's brother, and there's going to be a lot of shit going down.
Steve, it was almost like a western as well when I think about it.
Yeah,
it was like a dual dawn,
set in a Yorkshire village. I think it was Yorkshire.
We were speaking about this. Perhaps Lancashire.
I'm not sure.
Lancashire or Yorkshire, one of the two. But the accents are very distinctive, and they're somewhere around about that region. But yeah, again, I've mentioned in the next point of this guideline just the general revealing of the abuse Sonny and the gang of goons at his disposal meted out on poor Anthony. And again, it's revealed through a series of flashbacks, psychological abuse, physical abuse. This, incidentally, Anthony he's got handicaps, he's got issues, he's got disabilities. You need to tread carefully in the way you word that, I do understand, but also that has ramifications because they are sort of using them, they're emotionally abusing them for their own ends. They're having a laugh at it. What did you make about just the way Meadows, and obviously other people involved in the script and whatnot, I'm not entirely sure who penned the script, but the way they slowly drip-fed the nature of this character's abuse, the nature of the story out, and allowed us to get more comfortable in the shoes of this Richard character, who's just punishing these guys. He's putting them into suitcases later on in the movie and everything.
Yeah, there's a justification in his actions, John, and it was important for the audience to experience the horrendous abuse that Anthony is experiencing through these thugs. They're not just clowns, and they're not just pushing the drugs and acting the buffoons. They are quite nasty people, or not quite nasty people. They're very nasty people. That don't. They don't answer to anyone, they're quite happy, and content to take this poor lad, who's obviously got his learning disabilities, and expose him to physical abuse and psychological abuse, and that's important for us as, audience members as well, to see where this story is going, to see the justification in Richard's actions as well, and support Richard, because you want to support him throughout this film. Even before we knew what was going down, there was something likeable about him, something honest about him and wholesome, but at this point in the film, via those flashbacks, it was very important to see just what his younger brother was going through for the justification. It's a kind of a setup for the second half of the film and the way it's executed. Pardon the pun, but there's a bit of execution going on.
There definitely is, Stephen. There's a whole array of executions that happen, and they're absolutely brutal, and in some cases quite gory. None more so than the actual first death, which we'll get into, but you're absolutely right, Stephen.
The nose one?
The nose one was absolutely shocking. The first one was actually the axe in the toilet. They're all downstairs, and somehow Richard gets into the house and goes up and kills one of them when they're away down the toilet, and then I think he writes one down, so many to go, 5 to go, whatever. But Stephen, I've likened Meadows' direction in this to almost what Ari Aster's doing these days, where it's so slow burn. Well, not slow burn, I mean, it's quite a frenetic movie once it gets going, but the the way Drip feeds out the story and what's happening. I've said he's doing Ari Aster style directing 10 years before Aster was doing it.
I agree, yeah.
And I just thought his direction was absolutely fantastic. You got some really amazing performances, more so than from Toby Kebbell. But we'll get into performances shortly. You need to speak about the first death, and then I mentioned it. What the hell do they call that? Duel at Dawn? Is it a Dawn Duel? The classic Western thing. Again, the score, Statued, I think it is. It's an amazing, I think it's by Adam or something. It's an amazing little, almost Western guitar part. It's incredible. It's like a Rattlesnake-esque.
Yeah.
Just them meandering up to this field to confront Richard. One's got a sniper rifle. They go out to confront him. He comes out with an axe. Yeah. He's ready. He's accepting that he's going to die. The guy doesn't care. He's got nothing, as I keep saying, to lose. He's fighting. It's hard to speak about it because we're trying to reveal this movie as it sequentially as it goes on. So the big reveal's at the end, but he has nothing to lose, and it's more understandable once you get to the end of the movie. But he comes out with an axe, and this guy's got a sniper rifle. Sonny, that is. He misses him. And then they all scamper. They're absolutely terrified.
He shoots one of his own guys.
Yeah, he shoots one of his own guys. That's right. The older guy. Yeah, he shoots him in the head. And he's walking.
Yeah, I mean,
and the scamper.
There is comedy in there as well, John. You've got to remember that we are talking about genres here, the likes of revenge, Western, but I don't think we can ignore there is humour in there. It's dark humour, But that scene when he comes out with the axe, I did laugh at that. This is a guy who just doesn't give a F, and again, it's to do with the psychological hold he's got over this gang. That he's not letting his guard down at any point. He's not showing any fear. And they know that, and that's in their heads. And that's why the Scarper.
Absolutely, Stephen. Look, you're right about tonally. There is so much going on here in terms of black comedy and Western vibes and whatnot, violence. It's almost like hide and seek at one point where they're all hiding, trying to get away from him. They're sitting in a toilet, cramped, 3 of them. One's getting eaten, I think, a pot noodle. The other one's in the bath and another one's on the toilet. Very, very strange, but it shows you how much, as you did say, Richard gets into their heads. But you mentioned it previously, sowing the seeds of discontent. It's almost like the Invisible Man in the way that he's manipulating these guys all off of each other. He does it again here when Sonny misses and shoots his own guy in the head. That just fractures this whole gang. Yeah. One, I think, disappears and goes off and runs. I think they end up at a petrol station. The car breaks down. The trusty, reliable Citroen 2ZV or CV, whatever the hell it's called, breaks down. One disappears. They're all fractured. Again, that just shows you this guy's skills. I think he was an ex-British paratrooper or something. He knows tactically how to get into people's heads, and he just plays them like an absolute fiddle. I just really enjoyed that sequence. I love the music, everything about it, the way it was shot. It's just, there's so many good scenes in this movie. It's hard to go through every single one, but I'll do my best.
Yeah.
But I think first and foremost, we should now perhaps speak about Paddy Considine and his magnificent performance. You briefly touched upon it earlier on in the review. I've said his other standouts. Truth be told, it's really only 3 good acting performances in this movie, and it's only 3 that's needed.
Yeah.
You have got Toby Kebbell, Paddy Considine, and Gary Stretch as Sonny. But man, you mentioned that Paddy Considine carries this movie really with his performance. It's all about this guy. It has to be believable. He's on a journey, an emotional journey. You can see every bit of anguish and emotion in the human lexicon of emotions etched into the guy's face. He's just absolutely magnificent.
Ticks
in
as
this
well,
movie.
John.
Yes, the ticks, yeah.
The head tick,
It's a fantastic performance. What did you make about Paddy? What did you make about Toby Kebbell as well? Because I have to say,
I'll talk about Paddy first, John. As I said, at the start of the review, this was the first film I saw him in, and he blew me away just with performance. And you're right, the angst in this character, everything building up was all in, Considine's face.
Yeah.
Just his facial reactions, the way he was delivering the lines as well was a build up. You talk about the pacing of this film and the drip fed nature of the storytelling. It's the same in the actor's face as well. In his performance. You talk about Toby Kebbell. Physically, this guy. I don't know how to word this, John, but he's a convincing. Lad that's got disabilities, and in real life Toby Kebbell doesn't. So it doesn't really have a lot to do in the film other than just sort of hang around in the background. He has some lines, but there's not a lot there. If you've ever seen Kebbell's other work, you'll see how good an actor he is. But don't get me wrong, in this he's fantastic. It's only until you realise that this guy is a tremendous actor in other films, you realise how good his performance is in this film. And Stretch, a boxer. I don't know if he acted before this film, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how easy it came to him. You know, I think
apparently he did act, but not much. I think it was maybe 2 other movies or something.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the character of Sonny is, I wouldn't say he was all in out 2-dimensional villain or anything like that. You know, I think the way, you know, Stretch performed showed the character's vulnerabilities. You know, he wasn't as cocksure as he would like to be. A lot of cardboard sort of gangsters out there, John. I think that was probably the best way to sum him up. He was the big fish in a little pond, if you like, you know, and a bigger fish came into that pond, Richard.
Yes, Stephen, look, Sonny, it was clearly just a guy who was deeply insecure. He was projecting out all of his fears and insecurities onto poor old Anthony, and as you did say, bullies in general tend to be deeply troubled individuals. They have stuff going on, and to try and escape from that, they try and project their anguish and hurt and all of their issues onto other people to make them feel as miserable as they do. And again, you see that through Gary Stretch's performance in this. He's an absolute he's a C-U-N-T. I can't say the word. We don't like to swear on this channel, even though it's not for children.
No, it's an adult channel.
It's an adult channel, but you've got to draw the line somewhere. It's a vile word, but it gets used a lot in this movie. But
justified as
even
well.
Even though he's a C-U-N-T, there's something about the performance that you do connect with him in some strange way. I don't know why. I was laughing the way he died, but we'll get into that shortly. But there's something about the performance, the way he slaps these underlings about, it's quite enjoyable. Yeah, I spoke about Considine, just a wonderful performance. You mentioned it with Toby Kebbell. I actually thought he was. He did have disabilities. Until I actually realised how fine an actor he actually was. That's how sort of authentic the performance was and how believable and how good he actually performed in this movie. As you did say, not a huge amount to do though, so perhaps I'm getting a little bit hyperbolic. But
no, I don't think so.
I love the movie that much. I can't help myself. But Stephen, we shall move on to the next point, and it's obviously the just desserts for Sonny and his crew, his motley crew of underlings. Obviously, one of them gets, as I did mention earlier, put into a suitcase. He's killed and sort of contorted into this suitcase. I still don't know how Richard managed that, but he did. And he brings the suitcase with him, incidentally. I did mention it, the whole sequence as a whole. They're laughing, joking, they're drinking. I think they're taking drugs. I think one of the, I don't know what he does. He puts this concoction of drugs, maybe into the pot noodle or something, but they're all absolutely out of their mind, stoned to hell. They're on the moon, perhaps on Jupiter. And they're sitting in the toilet, they're all terrified, there's 3 of them together. And then Richard finally comes along and metes out his abuse to them all. I think it's perhaps Saws that dies first with the gruesome nose hit.
Yeah.
I think he's dancing at my party, he's dancing with him. Are you the
Dance
devil?
Is pretty good.
It is pretty good. I think Saws asks him, are you the devil? He says, I wish, or Jesus, or something like that. And he's just playing with them and spitting on them and whatnot. And then he kills him with a hit to the nose, which was Bruce Lee-esque in its majesticness. So I think it's then Sonny who gets killed. I was disappointed with Sonny.
I was going to say that.
It was good. It was enjoyable that he got his desserts, but it was disappointing. It was too quick.
A film as a whole, it's a satisfying conclusion to the film, but at this point, John, we've not came to the conclusion yet. You think this is the sort of climatic finale to the film, and then it's kind of underplayed. There is a bit of an anticlimax because you want this guy to suffer and suffer a little bit more, which what you don't realise is that he's been suffering since the start of the film. Since Richard arrived back in this village, Sonny has been suffering mentally, you know, not just physically but mentally as well. You know, the worry and concern he must have been through, sleepless nights, you know. But you're right, John, watching that for the first time I thought, is that it? You know, is this the film finished? Because we didn't know the twist at this point.
At least he was considerate enough though to put his head in a bag, so that when they did blow his brains out and it was all over pretty quickly, that there wouldn't be any blood over the floor and whatnot. So he was a considerate guy, Richard. Again, always thinking ahead with that tactical military mind. Again, that sunny day moment where he's spaced out his napper, he's doing weights. Again, that just tells you everything you need to know about Stretch's performance. It's so authentic. The death of Herbie was probably the most enjoyable. He made him feel like he was going to survive. he offered him a get out if he told him where the other guy, I think it's Mark, was.
Yeah.
And then he stabs him, and I think he reveals his friend in the suitcase, then he stabs him. So,
it's mental torment now, yeah.
Mental torment. He's doing exactly to them what they did to his brother. But Stephen, we go on to the finale after that. He does track down Mark thanks to Herbie singing.
Yeah, this came out of nowhere, John, because there's no mention of Mark. Well, not that I can recall. I've not seen the film in about 4 years.
I think in the flashbacks we see him.
Yeah,
he's hanging
again,
back.
You're not taking any notice of this guy, you don't really notice that he's not around the film up to that point, And, as we said, this is the finale now, and this is sort of the payoff of the story. And, the finale, we'll get into it obviously, John, but I just want to say that, the first time I saw this, not a lot of films get me emotional, like tears, I see them for what they are. They are films, but there's something about this film, and there's something about the way the finale built up, and the reveal as well, and the music. We can't forget the music as well. Very chilling. There's something about this that stirs the emotions, and I watched this film myself first and foremost, and sitting, I think 11 o'clock at night in tears watching this, just the way. Yeah, it reveals what happened and what's been going down, and I showed my wife the film the very next day, and same reaction, absolutely bawling at the end.
Yeah, Steve, it's tragic.
It is, John, and not a lot of films do that. Not for me anyway. There's something about this. You don't need a big production, you don't need a big budget or anything like that with an all-star cast to sort of pull at the heartstrings.
No,
just a very enjoyable written film. I think actually. This film was directed and written by Shane Meadows.
Shane Meadows, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, John.
So it was just an absolute sort of double duty level of magnificence from the man. Because it is, Stephen, you're right, it's just so well wrote. As I did speak or allude to earlier on, the way slow drip feeds everything out in terms of what's happening with Anthony, the motivations behind Richard's obviously actions, the way he's taking down these guys, and spectacular in some cases, but mostly brutal. Forms, none more so is that sort of alluded to when you actually see this flashback, and the pain that must have been building in this guy, knowing he was away, that he couldn't help his young brother who he had such a good bond with. The reveal of his death, it was almost Sixth Sense like. It was M. Night Shyamalan-esque in terms of the twist, because he was with him all through the movie, hanging back, he was by his side, having conversations with him. You ultimately realise it's all been in his head. He's not an actual ghost, but he's bearing that burden, that guilt for not being there and protecting his younger brother. And again, that just shows you his, as I keep saying, his motivations. It shows you that he's ultimately a good guy. He's justified in his actions. And I was much like you, Stephen, very upset watching the reveal that he had hanged himself because of these morons leaving him on his own.
He actually put the rope round his neck and left him to get on with it,
But I think he was screaming. I think he was actually screaming Richard, because he was wanting his brother to come and save him. But he was that distressed. They'd blackmailed him, and I think emotionally just made him a wreck. So they felt like there was no other conclusion other than taking his own life. It was absolutely tragic, but at the same time, so beautifully written, and the way that it just manifested on the screen. The finale, though, Richard and Mark. What can you say? Again, emotional. Yeah. He has that interaction with his wife, Mark's wife. He tells her what's happened. I think that's when we get the reveal of Anthony's death. And then he has the moment with Mark. He comes out later on the next day, or earlier the next day, it's right in the morning, takes him away. I just love this interaction between Mark and Richard, because Mark isn't quite as guilty as the other guys. He did take a step back, but as Richard rightfully says to him, you're almost guilty by association because you didn't step in and save my brother. And he wants to pass the guilt over to him by making him kill him, take his life. He's then at peace, and he's leaving him with the guilt of everything that's happened. And I just thought that was poetic, beautifully written again. The music, I think it's Nano 2 by Aphex Twin. Piano heavy, everything about it. Just, there's so many sequences in this movie which just come together beautifully in terms of technically story, acting, cinematography, and none more is that sort of accentuated, for lack of a better word, than in this end sequence. The music's there, the acting's there, the story comes to a beautiful end, and then the cinematography, where it's coming slowly away from this church all the way up over the town. Just a fantastic ending to this movie. I loved it.
John, I can only repeat what you said there. I would add that not a lot of films in my life make me go back and watch them and have the same emotions over again. I know what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end of this film, and I'll leave it maybe 4 or 5 years before I go back and watch this film. So I've seen it a few times, and every time it gets me. And not a lot of films can do that.
No.
The ending too. And still are able to affect you emotionally and get you angry. I don't know how many times throughout this film I was angry. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me frustrated, it made me angry. And this is all down to Shane Meadows' writing. And Paddy Considine, by the way, he co-wrote this as well. So
there you go.
It's obviously a passion project between both of them. And for such a film that was condensed in a very small area, you're right, the cinematography and the way this was shot was brilliant. I think you might have said, John, the cinematographer was someone that did the King's Speech. I can't remember the chap's name.
He's done so many. I'll try and find his name.
He's an experienced guy in his field.
Danny Cohen.
Yeah, so sheer look of the film, and as I said, it's not a big cast. I found it very hard to talk about, obviously, performances when there was only 3 probably standouts in there. But just an amazing film, and I just look forward to seeing this film over and over again.
Yeah, Stephen, look, Danny Cohen, briefly I'll touch upon him. Victoria and Abdul, he's worked on the likes of that, as you did say, The King's Speech, The Danish Girl, Room. He's just a magnificent cinematographer, and he does a fantastic job in this movie. There's so many elements, as I keep repeating myself time and again, that come together and make this such an enjoyable watch. Composer, Aphex Twin, but in truth, the soundtrack kind of super exceeds the score for me. The choice of songs, it's almost Tarantino-esque.
Yeah.
The way they just add so much to the scenes. But the score was pretty damn good as well. It was decent. I mean, you can't do it down. It's Aphex Twin. He's just an amazing sort of musician. What he says, like 07-esque, with its like electronic vibes, down tempo. So that was pretty damn good as well. But look, overall thoughts on the movie. I think we've probably done it to death. This is one of my all-time favourite movies. I just love it. It's probably my top 10 of all time. And for Shane Meadows and Paddy Considine to produce that on a relative shoestring budget, an independent British movie, to be fighting it up there with the likes of The Godfather and whatnot, for me, is my all-time favourite movie.
It's all subjective, John.
That is
not
quite
right
achievement. No, Stephen, it's a fantastic movie. If anyone hasn't seen it, they really are doing themselves a serious misjustice. They need to go and watch this movie. It's magnificent, man. But I don't know if you've got anything else to add to it.
I certainly don't, John.
Well, that is going to round up our review for Dead Man's Shoes then. Have you guys seen Dead Man's Shoes? If you've not seen it, if you haven't, go and watch it. If you have seen it, do you share our love for this movie? Do you think it's absolutely magnificent what Shane Meadows, Paddy Considine, Toby Kebbell, Gary Stretch and all involved, what they did? Do you think it was fantastic? If you think anything about it, you can share your thoughts down below in the comments section. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and you can subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying content like this. And if you do, then you will see us again on Monday for something, because we don't know what we're doing. In truth, could be movie news, could be a review. We'll see you then.